Magandang araw, Pilipinas. Ito po si Attorney Alex Lacson, ang host ninyo itong linggong ito. Ang topiko po natin sa araw na ito, kinakailangan bang amyendahan o baguhin ang economic provisions ng ating Constitution? Ito ba ang hadlang sa pag-unlad ng ating bansa? Ito ba ang susi para pumasok at dumagsa ang mga foreign investors sa ating Pilipinas? Iilan po ito sa mga tanungan na pipilitin nating sagutin kasama ating magigiting at magagaling na panauhin sa araw na ito. Dalawa po ang ating panauhin ngayon. At ipapakilala ko po sila sa inyo ayon sa kung sino po ang naunang tumanggap sa ating imbitasyon. Ang unang ipapakilala ko po sa inyo ay kilalang distinguished representative o congressman ng 1st District of Albay. He is a highly respected member of the House. Kilala ho siya sa kanyang pagmamahal sa bayan at sa kanyang mga nationalistic stand sa iba't ibang issue ng ating bansa. Siya po ang presidente ng Liberal Party of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congressman Edsel Lagman.
Thank you.
Ang pangalawang panauhin po natin is a highly respected economist in our country. At summa cum laude graduate ho siya sa economics from De La Salle University in 1972. Isa ho siyang business entrepreneur at siya po ang presidente ng Federation of Foundation for Economic Freedom in the Philippines, a group of distinguished economists na nagpo-promote po ng major economic reforms para sa ating bansa. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Calixto Toti Quechamco. Welcome, sir. Kasama po natin dito ngayon yung mga news reporters sa iba't ibang media organizations, from different TV stations, radio stations, newspapers, tabloids, at iba't ibang media outlets. Pero tuloy-tuloy na po tayo. No? So, ang unang tanong ko po, doon sa topiko natin, kinakailangan bang amyendahan o baguhin ang economic provisions ng ating Constitution? Ano-ano po itong mga economic provisions na ito at bakit o hindi bakit natin sila baguhin? Simulan po natin sa pro side, sa kay Mr. Toti Quechamco. Sir, please go ahead.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ang sagot po sa mga tanong nyo, Alex, ay oo. Itong restrictions na ito ay hadlang. Lalo na ang mga restrictions ay nasa Constitution. Napakahirap palitan. Firstly, these restrictions are part of the fundamental law of the land. It doesn't give any of our legislators the flexibility to change as conditions change. The Philippines is the only country where these restrictions are in the Constitution. Foreign investors know that. Secondly, these restrictions have led to the Philippines being the most concentrated economy in Asia. That is, the prevalence of monopolies and duopolies and the lack of competition in many of our industries. If we want to be fully progressive, then we should serve the Filipino consumer rather than our industries. Rather than the oligarchs who are beneficiaries of these restrictions and lack of competition. To be really progressive, we should change the status quo instead of being reactionaries and arguing for the status quo where the consumers are being harmed by the lack of competition. In this regard, a third reason for removing these restrictions is contestability. The fact that another competitor could enter will make those monopolies and duopolies behave. Fourthly, those restrictions have a signaling effect. They signal that foreign investors are not welcome. Fifthly, removing those restrictions are necessary but may not be sufficient to attract foreign investors. It's true that other factors like rule of law, quality of infrastructure, and power availability are important. But still, a necessary condition is to remove those restrictions from our Constitution, or at least give Congress the flexibility to amend those restrictions when necessary. Fifthly, removing these restrictions in the Constitution will remove the legal uncertainty hanging over the Public Service Act and other liberalization laws. At present, there are cases in the Supreme Court questioning the constitutionality of the Public Service Act. This will remove an uncertainty for investors. Finally, the people are telling that they want those restrictions removed. They want a shift away from the Filipino first and Filipino-only ideology in the Constitution, which has failed to improve the lives of the majority of our people for more than 35 years and have seen the country being left behind by other countries like Vietnam and Thailand. When President Bongbong Marcos was elected with the largest ever voters' mandate in 2022, it indicated that the people wanted systemic change and that the 1987 Constitution had failed to live up to the expectations of the people. And Marcos back to power is the very antithesis of the people power revolution. The people were sending a message. Don't get me wrong. The 1987 Constitution restored democracy, and we should be grateful for that. However, its Filipino first and Filipino-only ideology has failed as an economic model and has failed to uplift the lives of the people. Just as the election of Javier Milei in Argentina showed that the Argentinian people wanted a dramatically different direction from Peronismo, the election of President Bongbong Marcos shows that the people want a different direction from the Filipino first and Filipino-only ideology in the 1987 Constitution. In the end, changing the Constitution is a political question. Politically, the people are signaling that they want it changed. Let's listen to the people.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Toti. Pakinggan naman po natin yung contra side. Sir, Congressman Lagman, sir.
Maraming salamat. At huwag natin kalimutan na dito mismo sa Club Pilipino ay sumumpa si President Cory Aquino pagkatapos ng successful EDSA People's Revolution na pinatalsik ang Marcos dictatorship. At bunga ng People's Revolution ay ating saligang batas. The lifting of the economic provisions o yung pagtanggal ng restrictive nationalistic provisions sa ating saligang batas ay hindi kailangan, hindi imperative, sapagkat ang ating bansa ay hindi pa nakagawa ng conducive economic environment. Katulad ng pag-address ng problema sa ease of doing business. Doon sa rampant corruption sa ating gobyerno. Doon sa unpredictability ng mga pulisiya ng ating gobyerno. Doon sa mahinang pagsuporta ng infrastruktura sa investments. Doon sa mahinang internet speed at yung mataas na pagbayad sa kuryente. Ito ang kailangang gawin muna ng gobyerno bago natin ma-attract ang foreign investors at ibaliwala ang nationalistic or economic provisions sa ating saligang batas. Titignan natin sa manufacturing na iyan ay kailangan ng ating bansa. Ito ay bukas sa dayuhan to the extent of 100%. Ngunit, pumabasok ba ang foreign direct investment katulad ng ating expectations? Hindi po. Ang datos ng Philippine Statistics Authority ay simula ng 2010, ang share ng manufacturing sa ating gross domestic product ay mababa. 2010, 21.9%. At ito ay bumagsak pa sa 26 at sa 16.1% in 2023. Kailangan natin ang manufacturing for industrialization. Hindi problema ang saligang batas. Sapagkat doon, pinapayagan ng 100%. Pumasok yung mga manufacturers. Bakit hindi pumapasok? May problema ang ating mga polisiya. Ngayon, dalawang beses natin liniberalize ang retail trade industry. Sapagkat ang sabi ng mga proponents, pag ito maliberalize, ay papasok yung malalaking mga retail investors. Hindi naman nangyari yan. Liniberalize natin. Sapagkat ang kulang yung tamang polisiya dito sa ating bansa. Yung sinabi ko na nga na tungkol sa ease of doing business, corruption, predictability of our government policies, infrastruktura. Ito ay recommendation ng tinatawag na Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Sa katunayan nga, merong isa pang pag-aaral na international. Merong sinabing 15 factors which would attract investors in a country. Alam mo, wala nga doon yung pag-alis ng restrictive provision sa saligang batas. Walang mga empirical studies ngayon sa Pilipinas na nagsasabi na pag pumasok ang mga dayuhan ay talagang lalaki ang job generation, tataas ang sahod ng mga workers, mabilis ang technology transfer, at bababa ang presyo ng mga goods and services. Wala pa naman na tayong pag-aaral dito. Inamin to doon sa amin na Committee of the Whole ng mga resource persons na walang pag-aaral. Ito ay lahat projections lamang. Alam mo naman tayo, mahusay tayo mag-project. Pino-project natin magandang growth rate, etc., etc. Pero, natutupad ba yan? Ay hindi. Ngayon, pupunta tayo sa public utilities. Ang public utilities ay basically natural monopolies. Ang gusto sabihin nito ay talagang mahirap ang pag-invest sa utilities sapagkat nga malaki ang investment na kailangan. Kaya yung sa economics of scale ay talagang kung meron ng investor ay yung mga ibang gusto mag-invest ay hindi na pumapasok. Nakikipart-partner lamang kahit na mas maliit ang sa kanilang equity. At ang tendency sa buong bansa, sa buong mundo ay yung public utilities ay kinokontrol o ay ang may-ari ang gobyerno kapares sa Europa. At ito naman na public utilities ay service industries. Service, hindi to manufacturing, service. At puno-puno na tayo ng services dito. Pero importante na ito ay nasa control ng Pilipino at Filipino Corporation sapagkat ito ang lifeblood of the people. Ito ang nagbibigay ng kailangan nila sa araw-araw. Kapares ng kuryente, tubig, transportasyon, communication, etc. Ngayon, pupunta tayo sa edukasyon. Ang problema sa edukasyon is shortage of classrooms, shortage of teachers, shortage of instructional materials, hindi tamang curriculum. Ito lahat ay hindi ma-solve ng pagpasok ng mga dayuhan. Lalo-lalo na yung problema sa affordability and accessibility to quality education. Sapagkat pag pumasok yung dayuhan, mahal ang tuition fee. Mahal ang pag-aaral. Kakaunti lang naman sa mga Pilipino ang makaka-afford. At ito ay i-continue natin yung tinatawag natin na elitist education. Yung mga mayayaman lang at ang may poder, yung mga anak nila ang makakapasok sa mga eskwela nito. Meron naman tayong UP, meron tayong Ateneo, meron tayong De La Salle, meron tayong mga SUCS. Bakit pa? At isang problema natin, bakit mababa ang ating performance sa PISA, yung international competition tungkol sa mathematics at reading. Iko-quote ko mismo si Dr. Tote, ang sabi niya, ang isang problema ay malnutrition, di ba? At flawed curriculum. Itong malnutrition at maling curriculum ay hindi masosolve ng pagpasok ng mga dayuhan. And lastly, sa industry. Ang industry naman ay bukas na. Ang itong advertising industry ay bukas na ito. Sinasabi ito, wala na itong portals. Kaya pasok na dito, libre nang pumasok dito. Na walang restriction gaano yung technology. Kaya hindi natin kailangan ang pag-alis ng restrictive provisions sa ating saligang batas. And going back to my first statement, anong nangyari sa ating ekonomiya during the time of the dictatorship of Marcos? Ang growth natin went below zero. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Lagman. Now we would like to hear from the media. Ang una pong magtatanong ng kanyang question ay from Nats Alforte ng Saksi News.
Yun pong kung foreigner po yung ma-manage na o may bubukas nga po dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, paano na lang kaya magkaroon tayo ng problema doon? Kasi siyempre, lalo na sa mga balita, samantalang nandito naman ang malalaking media entity natin na kilalang kilala at na sa tingin ko mas mahuhusay pa sa ibang bansa kung papayagan natin dito sila yung mga foreigner.
Sir, please. So si Mr. Tote will answer first.
Can you clarify the question? Yung the foreigner is coming here.
Yeah.
In what way? Can you explain?
Because I think yung sa media po na is one of the gusto nilang i-allow, itanggalin yung restriction. So pag pumasok po yung foreign owners dito at sila magmamay-ari, halimbawa, ng mga media outlets natin later on, posible na siguro sila magmay-ari ng radio stations, ng newspapers, mapoprotektahan ba ang interes ng bansa? Yun ba ang tanong mo, Mr. Nats?
Una, yung mas ng RBH 7, ano? Pangalawa, alam naman natin technologically, medyo nagko-consume na tayo ng foreign media, hindi ba? Na, nakikinig kayo sa Facebook Live, sa YouTube, etc. No? In fact, mas malakas na ata influence ng social media ngayon kaysa sa traditional media, no? Pangatlo, palagay ko, walang problema to have foreign capital to come in. It will allow us, in fact, to export our cultural industries, our creative industries. Alam niyo ba, like for example, sa South Korea, nag-export sila nung kanilang mga K-movies, K-pop, etc. Meron silang foreign capital na nag-provide sa kanila. Dito, 100% hindi pwede. No? So, yun ang masasabi ko. Saka kung sakaling merong tayong gustong i-regulate, sa batas pwede naman i-regulate yan with either libel or national security laws, etc. It can be regulated in that sense, no? So I don't think it should be a reason for us to bar foreign ownership in mass media.
Congressman Lagman, sir. Meron po.
Tama si Tote. Hindi naman kasama ito sa proposition sa Senado at sa babang kapulungan yung pag-liberalize ng 100% Filipino ownership ng media. Bakit ito sinama? Kapares ng sa advertisement. Sapagkat mas kailangan nasa kamay ng Pilipino ang mass media sapagkat ito ay can control thoughts, can control actions, can develop values na pwedeng salungat sa values ng mga Pilipino. Kaya dito isinama. Isa pa, kapares ng advertising industry, bukas na ang portals sa media, pwede nang pumasok. Sabi nga dito, nandiyan dyan yung mga internet, nandiyan ang social media pumapasok, yung mga news galing sa ibang bansa pumapasok. Hindi na kailangan i-relax yung ating restrictive provisions.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Now we would like to hear the next question from Ms. Sheila Crisostomo of the Philippine Star.
Good morning po. For Congressman Lagman, sir, if we allow full ownership of educational institution, what are the safety nets na yun nga, our national interests will be protected and ma-preserve yung nationalism ng mga estudyante? And for Dr. Chief Kiangco, sir, what's your opinion on yung mga concerns on national interest and patriotism? Anong take nyo dun sa mga discussions against this provision because of national security?
Ang question po nila is on the foreign ownership, removing the foreign ownership restrictions sa educational institutions.
Unang-una, kailangan liwanagin natin dun sa panukala to amend the educational institutions equity requirements ito ay linilimita sa tertiary education. At yung basic education ay talagang tuloy pa rin ang ating restrictive or nationalistic provisions. Nasabi ko na nga na marami tayong problema sa edukasyon na ito muna ang harapin ng ating bansa. Ulitin ko, lack of classrooms, lack of teachers, lack of books. Yung ratio natin ay hindi ideal o maabot sa one classroom o one teacher to about 60 students or pupils. Hindi yan conducive. At meron pa tayong problema sa malnutrition. na kailangan isolve natin. At ito ay hindi mabibigyan ng lunas ng pagpasok ng mga foreign investments. Pagtatanong ka, ano ba ang best guidelines to protect our nationalism and culture? The best guidelines are those already provided for in the Constitution. Restrictive economic provisions favoring Filipino ownership and equity.
Mr. Totti, sir.
Actually, maraming benepisyo na padawagin at allow yung mga foreign investment dito sa ating educational institutions. We could be a center for education here in Asia. We could, in fact, attract students from all over Asia. If we have, for example, a Harvard or a Stanford or other foreign universities to come in here, we could generate foreign exchange. Just like Singapore is doing, they have a lot of foreign institutions, higher institutions of learning. Saka bakit tayo matatakot doon sa kanila? I mean, these are well-established foreign institutions, no, education institutions. Yung mga 10% nga of our population in-export natin hindi ba? They're exposed to foreign influences Ginagawa natin overseas workers. Kasi ang nangyayari nga pinapaalis natin sila instead of actually welcoming foreign investments, saka dito sila magtrabaho, no? But any case, in the case of education, in terms of culture, sa curriculum, it can be regulated because the CHED can always impose whatever is the curriculum that will be used in tertiary modes of education. If I understand correctly, I think Congress just passed a law on the CHED, right? Increasing their supervision over tertiary centers of learning.
Thank you, Mr. Quechanco. Now, for the next question, we would like to hear from Mr. Ben Briones of the Philippine News Agency.
Sir, good afternoon po. Sir, sinusulong din po ba na payagan ng mga dayuhan to own advertising institution in the country? Itong mga advertising company, sila po yung gumagawa ng mga ads o commercial sa TV, radio, social media, news at magazine. Paano po mapoprotektahan ng interes ng bansa at taong bayan kung dayuhan ang magmamayari ng mga advertising companies?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Bakit? Pag Pilipino pa, hindi sila gagawa ng hindi tama? Just porque Pilipino, hindi sila gagawa ng hindi tama. Ang kwan doon is that dayuhan ka man o Pilipino, kung ang gagawin mo hindi masama, meron silang tayong mga advertising ethics, rules or regulations, and all things libel, even national security provisions in the Public Service Act. So, ang Pilipinas sa atin, o pag foreigner, masama ang mangyayari. Tingnan mo nga ang NBA, hindi ba ang NBA, meron silang mga players sa Serbia, sa China, sa Africa, o sinasabi ba nila polluted yung US because of these players? In fact, mas entertaining because they're from all over the world. Hindi ba? Hindi yung iniisip nila, pag foreigner, masama.
Congressman Lagman, sir. The same question po. Removing the foreign restrictions sa advertising industry.
Yung foreigners talaga, ay hindi naman masama. Huwag na tayong umalis sa Pilipinas. Nag-i-import tayo yung mga basketball players na foreign, hindi ba? Pero iyan ay hindi investors. Hindi yan bibigay ng control sa ating mga importanteng negosyo, kaparis ng edukasyon, public utility, at yung ating advertising industries. Okay, pumasok sila dito. Ang mga players na yan, kapag papasok nila sa NBA, pero wag lang na makontrol ang ating mga basic, sensitive, and important industries.
So thank you, Congressman Lagman. Next, for the next question from Teleradio, Mr. Steve Raz.
Hello, ayun. Economic charter allows foreign investors to control the ownership of our public utilities like electricity, power transmission grids, and etc. And if it happens, hindi po ba malalagay sa peligro yung publiko, like pagka nagkagera tayo sa China, for example, isang pindot lang nila, wala na tayong kuryente and internet signal sa Pilipinas, since the National Grid Corporation is owned 40% by China po ngayon.
So, public utilities po, no? Public utilities. Yung removing...
Alam nyo, sa Public Service Act, meron ng provisions for that in terms of critical infrastructure. I think kailangan may national security review kung critical infrastructure to, at pwedeng i-block ng presidente kung naiisip nila na kung ang control by a foreign entity will result in a compromise of the national interest. So may mga rules and regulations na yan governing investment in critical infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Toti. Congressman Lagman, sir.
Palagay ko, hindi natin kailangang pag-usapan yung Public Service Act amendment. Sapagkat iyan, nasa Korte Suprema pa. That was challenged with good reasons. Bakit? Doon sa Public Service Act, pinaghiwala yung public service sa public utility. At yung public service ay hindi na susunod sa restrictive provision ng ating saligang batas. Hindi po tama yun. Sapagkat ang public service at ang public utility ay pareho. Sabi nga ng Supreme Court, ito ay one in the same. They are synonymous. Kaya hindi pwedeng gawin yan upang maiwasan lang ang restrictive provision ng saligang batas. Kaya huwag natin i-invoke yan. Maghintay natin ang desisyon ng Korte Suprema tungkol dyan. Ngunit, ang public utilities, uulitin ko, ay lifeblood of the nation. Iyan ang nagbibigay ng basic needs ng ating taong bayan. Kailangan talaga iyan ay nasa control and ownership ng mga Pilipino. Kapares sa Europa, iyan ay under the control and ownership of the state mismo. Sapagkat kailangan bigyan ng proteksyon ang mamayan sa mga sensitive industries at yung delivery ng mga essential needs ng tao.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Now, for the next question, we would like to call on Ms. Mela Limoras of PTV4.
Hi, good morning po, Congressman Lagman and Dr. Regarding po pa rin sa RBH 7 sa Economic Charter Change, since naipasa na sa second reading at sinasabi nga ng iba ay nalalapit na sa finish line, can we just reiterate, lalo na ito din yung issue ng Senate, ano po ba yung mas maganda para sa atin? Voting jointly or voting separately? And may I just add for Congressman Lagman, sa tingin niyo po ba mukhang set in stone na yung pagpasa ng Kamara sa third reading by Wednesday nitong RBH 7? Thank you po.
Check na yan. It's a foregone conclusion na yung supermajority sa mababang kapulungan ay bobotohan at aaprubahan ang resolution of both houses number 7 sa mababang kamara. Check na yan. By next week, yan ang deadline nila. Ngunit tungkol dun sa voting jointly or separately, ay palagay ko, ang sabi sa amin ni Alex ay hindi natin pag-uusapan ang procedure.
But it's okay po.
Pwede lang pag-usapan?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Pag-usapan, okay. Well, alam mo, ang sabi ni Chief Justice Puno, itong provision sa Constitution, sinatawag niyang Article 17, Section 1.1, tungkol sa Congress can, by 3/4 vote, amend the Constitution. Ang sabi ni Chief Justice Puno, ito ay inadvertence. Nakalimutan nila na palitan yung original provision sapagkat ang akala ng mga members of the Constituent Commission ay unicameral ang ating Kongreso. Ang nangyari, natalo unicameral by 1 vote. Pero hindi na nabalikan yung provision na yon. So, inadvertence. Ang sabi naman ni Assistant Justice Ascuna, iyan ay isang pagkakamali. Sapagkat nga, hindi ginawang sang-ayon sa bicameral legislature. Ngayon ba, pagpapatuloy ba natin ang inadvertence na to o yung pagkakamali? Palagay ko hindi. Meron tayong kailangan gawin. We should harmonize the provisions of the Constitution. Iyan ang isang basic rule sa construction. You harmonize the provision. At kung i-harmonize natin, kailangan yan susog doon sa dating provision ng Constitution o Constituent Assembly na voting, meeting jointly muna. Jointly. Sapagkat dalawang kamera yan. Jointly. Hindi hiwalay. Ang ginagawa natin yan, hiwalay. Parang mag-asawa na divorce na, ha? Hiwalay. Hindi tama. Kailangan joint meeting. At bakit joint meeting yan? Sapagkat nga, ang mga congressmen at ang mga senador ay hindi nag-a-attend ng Constituent Assembly as legislators. Hindi sila gumagawa ng batas. They are exercising constituent powers ang pag-amenda ng saligang batas. Ngayon, voting jointly. Voting jointly ba o separately? Iyan ang isang malaking question na kailangan ma-resolve ng Korte Suprema. Pero sa aking palagay, without any partisanship on the results of voting jointly, ay ang palagay ko voting jointly ito sapagkat unicameral ang Constituent Assembly. Walang senador yan, walang congressman, walang House of Representatives, walang Senate.
Unicameral.
Unicameral. Iyan ang sabi ng ating Korte Suprema doon sa kaso ng Gonzales versus Comelec. They are there not as legislators to enact laws, but to propose amendments to the Constitution. Magkaiba yan.
Congressman Lagman, if I just may clarify. So, ibig sabihin po, you are for voting jointly because that was the intention, original intention of the framers ng ating 1987 Constitution.
Yes, in that sense, you are correct, Brad. Because, but there is another higher consideration that the Constituent Assembly is a unicameral body. So, one senator, one congressman, one vote. And they should vote jointly. Jointly. Because they are not enacting a law, but they are proposing amendments to the Constitution.
Thank you po. Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Sir Toti, just comment, your personal comment. as a citizen.
Una, hindi ako doktor. Oh.
Yeah. Si Mr.
Pangalawa, hindi po ako abogado. No? Pangatlo, ang masasabi ko lang po is that wala akong comment doon sa method kasi sabi nga ni Alex, walang talakayan sa method.
But
Pero
it's okay.
ang masasabi ko lang, I think ang final settlement yan ay ang taong bayan. Kung ang referendum ay sumang-ayon doon sa changes sa Constitution, I think yung mga question dyan about yung method ay will become moot and academic because the highest form of consent would be the referendum, no?
Thank you.
Palagay ko, Kote, bago umabot sa taong bayan sa plebisito, palagay ko merong pupunta sa Korte Suprema.
Yeah.
Para nga idesisyonan kung ito ba ay voting jointly or separately.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, for the next question, we would like to call on Mr. Noli Liwanag ng Trending Headlines.
Good morning po.
Mr. Noli.
Pag binigay po ba natin sa Kongreso ang kapangyarihan na amenda ng economic provision ng Constitution, maaasahan po ba natin ang ating mga mambabatas? At mapagkakatiwalaan ba natin ang Congress na isulong ang interes at kapakanan ng sambayan ng Pilipino? Thank you po.
Sa ngayon, meron lamang na tatlong modes to amend the Constitution. Una, by a Constituent Assembly. Pangalawa, Constitutional Convention. Pangatlo, yung People's Initiative. Hindi yan kasama yung pag-amenda ng Constitution by ordinary legislation. Pero ngayon, ang panukala ay gusto ng mga karamihan sa amin sa mababang kapulungan na bigyan ang Kongreso ng karapatan i-amendahan ang Constitution by ordinary statute. Iyan ay pwede sapagkat kung iyan ay i-ratify ng tao, then binigyan ng tao ang Kongreso ng poder mag-amenda. Pero iyan ay extraordinary. Iyan exception na exception. Sapagkat yung saligang batas ay yung pinakamataas na batas. Hindi yan pwedeng i-amenda, palitan ng o review o modify ng ordinary legislation. Pangalawa, sa ngayon, walang partisipasyon ang presidente sa pag-amenda ng konstitusyon. Pero kung iyan i-amenda by ordinary legislation, ay nandiyan dyan na ang presidente. He can approve or veto any bill. And because ito ay dadaan sa bill, ay pupunta sa Pangulo. Kaya pag-aralan mabuti, at ang tanong sa taong bayan, gusto ba ninyo na ang Kongreso ay ang mag-amenda ng saligang batas? Sagutin ninyo yan kung dumating ang plebisito.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Mr. Toti, sir. Again, not as a member of Congress, but as a citizen, how would you, mapapagkatiwalaan ba natin ang Kongreso kung ibigay natin sa kanilang kapangyarihan?
Bakit hindi? I mean, sila po ay, they're elected by the people. So, they should be allowed to, amend it, I guess, no? As long as it's been ratified by the people in a majority of plebiscite, no? Pero ang palagay ko, ang mas tama, kung ako matatanungin, is that kailangan palitan natin yung buong konstitusyon. Napakahaba eh. I think it's 30,000 words. One of the longest in the world. Kasi masyadong madetalyado. Yung mga ibang konstitusyon, yung fundamental law of the land lang, yung basic principles lang. And then yung mga iba, ang legislation ang gumagawa. So, Kung ako ang tatanungin, papalitan ko yung buong konstitusyon.
Overhaul of the entire Constitution.
Yung overhaul, maybe through a constitutional convention. We should call it for constitutional convention, and then change it, no? After all, yung itong 1987 Constitution was made only by a few appointed members by President Cory Aquino. Hindi sila elected, no? Saka, so unlike in a constitutional convention na elected, no? So kung ako ang tatanungin mo, mas gusto ko mayroong constitutional convention na palitan yung buong konstitusyon natin. Masyadong mahaba at palagay ko hindi na angkop sa panahon ngayon na mayroong mga internet, mayroong artificial intelligence, etc.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question will be asked by Mr. AJ Alfafara ng Q Asia. Yes.
Magandang umaga po. Ang question po is that in the past 10 years, several laws and regulations have already been passed that already opened up the Philippine economy to the world without having to amend the Constitution. Now, with the RA 11659, the Revised Public Service Act, was enacted in March 2022. That's under this law, foreign investors are no longer restricted to 40% foreign ownership in telecommunication, shipping, airline, railway, toll road, and transport network vehicle industries. And then RA 11647, Foreign Investment Act, was enacted in March 2022 as well, which removed several industries from the foreign investment negative list, or those where 100% foreign-owned companies cannot invest in. Simply more industries such as startups, startup enablers, enterprises with advanced technology can have 100% foreign ownership. And RA 11595, Retail Trade Liberalization Act, was enacted in January 2022, which lowered the investment capital of foreign investors in retail business from $2.5 million paid up capital in current exchange, that's around 114 million pesos, to just 25 million pesos, or approximately $500,000. Renewable energy in 2022, the Department of Justice issued a legal opinion to the Department of Energy that renewable energy are not included in the definition of natural resources. Thus, renewable energy from solar, wind, and hydro energy sources are not subjected to the 40% foreign ownership restriction. So with all this enacted in the past Congress 2022, is there still a need to amend the rest of the, with the economic provisions? Because it looked like it would suffice. Thank you.
Well, as I said, right now, even Congressman Lagman admitted there are cases to question the constitutionality of the Public Service Act. So there's still a legal uncertainty over the Public Service Act. So removing these restrictions in the Constitution will remove that uncertainty. I think even former Justice Tony Carpio mentioned the same thing, no? That this will settle once and for all about the constitutionality of the Public Service Act, no? So that's why there's still a need to remove all those to know the restrictions, no? And besides, RBH 7 includes both education, public utilities, and advertising, no? Ideally, it should cover the others, but again, Congress has deemed fit to limit it into those three. The other reason for that would be really signaling to foreign investors that we are indeed serious and we are open to foreign investment, no?
Thank you, sir. Congressman Lagman, sir.
Well, I think legislation would be sufficient to encourage the entry of direct foreign investments or to liberalize the economy, as long as that legislation or statute does not offend the Constitution. Unlike what the Congress has done in the amendment to the Public Service Act, which really offended the Constitution because it just merely made an artificial distinction between public service and public utility, so as to remove public service industries from the coverage of the restriction. I think sufficient legislation will do. And we should remember that South Korea and Taiwan achieved superior economic status without banking or relying on foreign investments.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Si Ms. AJ actually mentioned a number of laws, no? And one of them, itong Foreign Investment Act, which is RA 11647, enacted in March 2022. Doon, tinanggal sa negative list ng foreign investment list yung several industries, no? Including startups and enablers. May mga pumasok bang investors po after na-enact yung batas na yon? Since that law was passed, tapos inallow yung several industries, tinanggal sila sa negative list ng Foreign Investment Act, marami bang foreign investors na pumasok? That's the first question. The second question is, ito I think po yung sa revised Retail Trade Liberalization Act, no? Which is RA 11595, again enacted also in 2022. Nilower niya yung capital requirement ng foreign investor from 2.5 million US dollars, roughly mga 140 million pesos today, to merely 500,000 US dollars. So roughly mga 25 million today. So nung pinasa po yung Liberalized Retail Trade Act na yon, noong 2022, marami bang pumasok na mga foreign investors sa retail industry natin? Yes, Congressman.
Doon sa datos ng Philippine Statistics Authority, ay kakaunti lang o hindi as expected yung pumasok sa retail trade. Despite the fact na dalawang beses natin na liberalize yan, ano ang datos? Yung share ng retail trade sa gross domestic product in 2010 was 12.8%. In 2023, last year, minimal lang yung increase. It increased to 14.8%. Kung talagang dumagsa yung entry of direct foreign investment sa retail trade, mas malaki sana ang share ng retail trade sa gross domestic product. Kaya hindi nangyari. Hindi nangyari.
Pero pwede rin po sabihin that it's only been 2 years. Ano po? Kasi 2022 pinasa yung batas.
Pero dalawang beses na yan eh.
Pangalawang beses.
Pangalawang beses na yan eh.
Correct.
Pangalawang beses na yan.
Yes.
Pero anyway, pwede tayo maghintay pa. Pero ito ang comparison dito is 2010 saka 2023, 13 years.
Okay.
That covered the period na nag-liberalize natin.
Inamend nga yung sa retail trade kasi yung unang reform niya, napakataas ang minimum capitalization. $20 million ata yung minimum capitalization, di ba?
The original.
Yung original. So, masyadong mataas, no?
Ni-reduce to 2.5 million.
That's why ngayon, mas binaba, no? Ang alam ko sa Thailand, mas mababa pa eh. Kasi nakakatulong yan sa kanilang tourism kasi may mga foreigners na nag-open ng kanilang mga shops, no, sa mga tourist areas, no. So, maaga pa yan, palagay ko papasok siguro later, no? Kasi siyempre ginawa pa yung implementing rules and regulations niyan siguro ngayon pa lang. Pero makikita natin yung power ng liberalization. Just for example, sa liberalization renewable energy, no? Kasi buhat no inopen po yan dahil sa DOJ opinion, napakarami nang pumasok dito o nag-signify na papasok sila sa solar, sa wind, mga from Spain. In fact, right now, I think in-announce sa Presidente sa Germany, may mga German investors in renewable energy, no? So liberalization can bring in a lot of foreign investments, no?
Thank you, sir. No, thank you. We have one more question. Yeah.
Sir,
Please identify yourself.
Gabriel Lalo po from Inquirer.net.
From Inquirer.
Sir, hypothetical na lang kasi napasa na sa second reading yung yung RBH 7 napasa na sa second reading tas malabo nang ma-amend yun sa House eh. Pero what is the strategy of the minority right now, sir? Kasi are you looking towards, kasi sabi nyo nga mukhang sure napapasa na talaga ng supermajority. Are you looking towards amending yung unless otherwise provided by law? Are you looking to find the allies sa Senate? Ano pong approach ng minority dito, sir?
Actually, walang magandang strategy against an overwhelming majority. Because at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Kaya kami ay lalabas sa mga arguments namin laban sa economic chacha. Ang amin na target ay hindi yung mga kasama na sirado na ang pag-iisip. Ang target namin, kayong media, ang taong bayan, na maintindihan kung ano ang mga issues. Matagal na natin pinag-uusapan yung unless otherwise provided by law. Ito ay malabong-malabo. Kung ikaw isang investor, gusto mo malaman ano ba ang meets and bounds, ano ba ang mga parameters pag magligay ako ng equity, ng capitalization dyan. Ito ba ay ma-increase to 100%, to 80%, to 90%, o ay increase ay minimal, gagawin na 55-45. Kaya't yung unless provided by law is nebulous. Iyan ay linalagay ang taong bayan na magre-ratify sa plebisito sa limbo. Hindi niya alam ng taong bayan kung ano ang gagawa ng Kongreso. Ganon din yung investor. Hindi alam ng investor ano ba naman itong future law ito. Contingent legislation ang nangyayari. Ang investor ay kailangan hindi flexibility, kailangan certainty.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Who's the next question? Yeah, to ask. Please identify your name and your organization.
Yes po, good morning po. Red Mendoza po from the Manila Times. Of course, it's all been threshed out already yung mga nuances and all the different issues surrounding sa RBH 7 and then sa economic provisions. Kong Lagman, you said nga po na you're only going to convince the public na lang instead. So, is this an admission po of defeat? Or I'm putting it bluntly po, are you saying po na this is an admission of defeat po sa inyong hanay po sa House and you're going to shift your gears na po on a possible plebiscite come 2025? And if so, Kong, are you going to be one of the lead conveners of the quote-unquote no campaign? And Sir Toti, are you willing to join the pro-constitutional movement in pushing for a possible yes campaign?
Well, you may call it defeat. Sapagkat natalo di ba? Ang nanalo yung super majority. Kaya't, pero hindi naman exercise impunity yung ginagawa namin. Sapagkat nga, we address this to the public, to the media, and to the Senate. Ang tingin ko, Tote, Alex, next week, pag pinasa ng lower house yung resolution of both houses number 7, ayan ay Palm Sunday. Ang daming aleluyas. Pero pagdating sa Senado, we are going to mourn it as if on Good Friday.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Yes, sir, Sir Toti.
Yes, of course, we will campaign for a yes. We hope we can even convince Congressman Lagman to vote yes because he's the president of the Liberal Party. You know, liberalism is about being pro-market, being open to the economy. That's what real liberalism is. No, hindi yung protectionism, yung hindi pagbubukas sa mga ibang investors, etc. So, classic liberalism is for a pro-market economy, no? Openness, no? Openness to trade, no? So, yan po ang totoong liberalism. So, sana makonvince rin namin si Congressman Lagman, whom I highly respect.
Thank you, Sir Toti. I think Congressman Lagman would like to say something about
I will recommend you to the LP to be an advisor.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. There's one more question, and this will be the last. Sorry for the other members of media. We are 3 minutes beyond the 11 o'clock already, but let's entertain the last.
Thank you very much. Good morning, gentlemen. I am Rod Cornejo of the Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication and a former executive of GMA Network. I have 2 questions, just 2. First is, what is your view on foreign media being taking ownership or being part owner of Philippine media? And second question and last question is, what's your view of the Philippine Constitution Association? Are they, in a way, being consulted? Are they credible? Are they being, can they contribute to discussion? That's all. Thank you very much.
Philippine Constitutional
Philconsa. Philconsa.
All right. So, 2 questions. One is, what do you think of foreign ownership in media? Second, what do you think of Philconsa contribution in all this debate and discussion? Sir Toti?
Well, for removing all those restrictions, even in mass media, as I explained, for example, that we could right now it's 100% Filipino, hindi ba? So, sayang because I think we could export our culture, our film, etc. if we accept foreign capital to access technology, access capital. As I explained, kumakain po ng BTS na South Korea, which is, as you know, very popular, no? Merong mga foreign capital doon sa behind. Hindi lahat, but meron silang foreign capital na tinatanggap, no? Kasi lalo na, I think, it's publicly listed yung kumpanya behind BTS. So, pangalawa, yung mga ibang mass media companies, well, for example, like Facebook, narinig ko na sana magiging headquarters ang Pilipinas, di ba? Pero paano yun? Sasabihin, you're operating as a mass media, hindi kayo pwede, 100% kayo. Sayang, we could get jobs here, for example, from mass media, no? From foreign-owned mass media. So, we are for accessing capital and technology from foreign sources in mass media. Besides, as I said, you have to talk about influence and culture. Kinukonsume na po ng tao natin, foreign media. Nanonood sila ng CNN, nanonood sila ng YouTube. Hindi ba? Mga foreign media yan Pero they're already accessing it. Di ba? O sinasabi nyo, may influence sila. May influence na nga sila Hindi ba? Ano pa ang sasabihin nating what more fears are we going to perpetuate by having them own foreign media here?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Congressman Lagman, sir.
Well, let me just restate that just like in the advertisement industry, the portals are open freely for the entry of modern technology and other innovations, both in advertising and media. So we do not have to allow the entry of foreign investment in media in order to have new technologies and innovations, because we are already having that. And moreover, we should distinguish between access and ownership. The Filipino audience has access to all of these international platforms, but access should not be should be differentiated from ownership. Ownership should belong to Filipino entrepreneurs, because media is a very sensitive industry which we could not give to foreign investors. Let them go to manufacturing. Let them go to service-oriented businesses. Let them go to retail trade, but protect the sensitive industries. Because according to the Constitution, and this is not being amended, Section 19 of Article 2, the Philippines shall develop a reliant and independent economy effectively controlled by Filipinos. And this is for the protection of our posterity, the generations to come. Let not the present forfeit that posterity.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Isara na po natin ang questions portion at ituloy na po natin ngayon sa closing remarks ng ating mga panauhin. I would like to hear first from Congressman Lagman, sir.
Well, kung wala tayong ibang ginagawa, huwag natin pakialaman ang saligang batas. Kung meron tayong maraming gagawin, isolve natin ang mga problema natin tungkol sa krisis sa edukasyon, sa agrikultura, sa food security, sa employment, sa health, at yung aggression ng China sa West Philippine Sea. Pero huwag natin itamper ang ating saligang batas. Marami nagsasabi, matanda na raw ang saligang batas. 37 years old na raw.
38 po. 37. Correct.
37. Huwag mo masyadong patanda.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
37 na raw.
EDSA pala yun, EDSA Revolution.
Ay, kung sa tao, 37 ay nasa prime pa, hindi ba?
Opo.
Balusog pa talaga. Pero ang ating saligang batas is not the relic of the past. It reminds us of our past, just like the dark years of the Marcos dictatorship. It gives us guidelines for the present and guideposts o gamay para sa kinabukasan. Kaya pinahirap ng ating constitutional fathers ang pag-amenda ng saligang batas. Ngayon, uulitin ko sinabi ko, kung talagang gusto nilang i-amendahan ang saligang batas, bakit hindi sabihin kung magkano talaga ang proportions? Bakit pa depending on otherwise provided by law? Talagang yan, malabo yan . Hindi mo malaman kung anong gagawin ng Kongreso after it is authorized to amend the Constitution. At ang gusto ng taong bayan at ang gusto ng mga investors, certainty, not flexibility. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Congressman Lagman. Sir Totti, sir, for your closing message po.
Ang sinasabi nila, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yung Filipino-only at Filipino-first ideology ng 1987 Constitution ay tinry out na natin for the past 37 years. And tingnan mo tayo, kulelat na tayo, naunahan na tayo ng Vietnam, naunahan na tayo ng Thailand, ng Malaysia. So baka maunahan pa tayo ng Cambodia at Laos, no? So ang sinasabi ko is let's try a different system. Yung tayo ay bukas. Kesa yung mga tao natin, ine-export natin ng mga tao. Kesa yung i-welcome natin yung foreign investments at magtrabaho sila rito. Ang ginagawa po natin ay hinihiwala natin mga pamilya natin at ine-export natin ang ating mga OFWs para mag-generate ng foreign exchange. So, let's try a different economic model than the ones that we have been doing before.
Maraming salamat, Sir Totti. Pilipinas, napakaganda po ng ating diskusyon ngayong araw sa topikong kinakailangan ba nating amyendahan o baguhin ang economic provisions ng ating Constitution. At para sa akin po, may dalawang importanteng katanungan na siguro kailangan din pagnilay-nilayan at sagutin, lalo na po tayong mga ordinaryong mamamayan. Una, yung economic provisions ba talaga ang hadlang sa pag-unlad ng ating bansang Pilipinas? O baka naman hindi? Baka naman deficiency sa policy sa gobyerno? Baka naman korupsyon o yung pagiging sakim at makasarili, yung kanya-kanyang mentality ng ating mga lideres sa politiko, sa gobyerno, at sa negosyo. Pangalawa, pag binigay po natin sa Kongreso ang kapangyarihan sa pagpasa ng batas tungkol sa economic provisions, isusulong ba nila ang makakabuti at kapakanan ng taong bayan? O baka naman yung pansarili at kapakanan lang nila ang isusulong nila? Ito lang po ang dalawang katanungan na sa aming palagay ay kailangan nating pagnilay-nilayan at pag-isipan tayong mga ordinaryong mamamayan. Pilipinas, sana po nakatulong kami sa inyo. Kasama ni Congressman Ed Lagman, sir, at ni Sir Totti Quechamco. Ito po ang inyong host, si Attorney Alex Lacson, para sa katotohanan, para sa taong bayan. Maraming salamat po at maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga miyembro ng media na kasama natin ngayon dito. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We're okay, sir. We'll have a little chat, sir, if you want.